So let me build upon that, and I'm going to pick on you and perhaps Ian, anyone else, is that how about running tabletop exercises, especially in larger corporations? Because people assume that their application, they'll have a playbook for their application, and they're ready to go, but oops, the network is still down. Now what do we do? So sequencing, talk about the sequencing and so forth of tabletops.
So CISA does provide a different variety of tabletop exercises, both from the national level to the organizational level down to a department level. And we even have tabletop in a box, where we give you a framework and you fill out the details of how you want to run it. You facilitate that. But because of the variety, we can help and reach out to any organization that wants to test their plan, that wants to maybe do a scenario that is a one-off, something just to kind of get people thinking. We also leverage leadership to make sure they're in the room so that they can make decisions that they need to make, not just technicians, not just engineers. But the idea being CISA can facilitate any exercise needs you have.
Which is pretty cool. Honestly, I think that's a really great service that...
And it's free.
That people, organizations in the United States, I mean, that's a real advantage, I think, that people should be taking advantage of. And, you know, so when we think about tabletops, I think about kind of a maturity curve. There are organizations that have never run a tabletop or maybe haven't run one in a few years. And then there are organizations kind of one tier up from that run them maybe every year. That kind of the traditional tabletop is you sit around a literal table and you talk about theoretically what will happen and theoretically what you will do in that situation. In my own experience, a lot of organizations in that situation, they have the incident response plan printed off, sitting on a table, and nobody actually picks it up and reads it or executes it. So that's kind of a funny situation. And then I really, when I think about another level of maturity, is being able to run that tabletop exercise with your team where they are. They're probably not going to all be sitting around a literal table at that moment. And so being able to run that exercise where people are working from home, you have your third party, your lawyer probably doesn't work in your office, they work in their office. Your MSP works in their office. So being able to engage people where they happen to be in that moment so that you have a comprehensive exercise, I think that's another level of maturity that should be considered.
Another thing to add to that would be it's important to do the tabletop, but when you're doing the detailed tabletop for the responders, have not the person who does the day-to-day response actually being the person following the plan. Have it be their backup or someone else, so that you can see that if that person is on vacation, you're not going to be completely at a standstill. And the second piece is you should also periodically do an executive level exercise, because frequently if something gets to be a larger one or it's in the news, it's important to have educated the senior levels within your organization about what sorts of reports there's a fine line between keeping things within and the cover of privilege, and also doing enough communications within your company and with your customers. So it's good to have exercised that ahead of time so that you're not scrambling when a real event happens.
Some years ago, I was involved in a very well-designed tabletop exercise, and I was impressed by all of the preparation, the materials, and just how thorough it was. Unfortunately, when a real event happened, as it turns out of all the people that were involved in the response, I was the only one who was actually ever involved in that tabletop exercise. So literally every single other person was not involved in response. Defeated the entire purpose of the exercise, which was great on paper, but obviously did not help us when things went south. So training realistically means having the people in the exercise that are actually going to be doing the responding, as opposed to a group of people that may be available but aren't necessarily going to be involved in actually responding to the event. I know that sounds kooky, but that was the outcome.
I just want to add to that, which is, as an incident responder, I have heard many times that people have a plan, they get to the incident, and then they look at the plan, and it's either too little or too much, so they decide to just disregard the plan, they throw it away, and they just go ad hoc. And I think that really speaks to Scott's point, but I don't think that that's a fault of planning. I think that's, to Scott's point, that doesn't make planning wrong. It just means that you need to do it the right way. I think planning is super important, and I think being able to execute on that incident response plan in that moment, having the right plan, really is the essence of where we need to get to so that people can execute on that plan. Because there's a lot of downside risks to not being able to execute to your plan.
True. And one thing that came up at a recent event that another CISO said he built into his plan is often when you're under the pressure of a real incident and you're getting hit from above and below, people get very stressed. And so they actually built in some steps about, reminding people that they do have a plan, to take a couple of deep breaths, and to really try to get that calm environment as you're trying to execute, which can be difficult, but whoever the leader is needs to be the one that sort of guides that for the rest of the team and keeps them focused.
So one last piece to that. I think it was Eisenhower that said, planning is essential, the plan itself is irrelevant. Because while you're planning, you're going through those necessary steps to work out the details, the relationships, the contacts, the processes. But at the end of the day, no plan survives contact with the enemy. And so the planning is essential. The plan itself, it may or may not work for you.